Yeah, yeah, I love her. It's almost like she's real.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
Totally.
So and hopefully, I say hopefully she'll have the same impact on everybody else. I can't help but think that she won't. You know that she,
Yeah.
that she will have
Yeah, I
a
hope
positive
so.
impact. Well, no, I do, but it's been a long, arduous journey.
Sounds like love.
Yes. Yes. He knows, the voice of experience. Okay, so take 10 plus 1, so Danny knows the difference.
11.
Hi, I'm Nathan Armentrout.
So,
Next is like
I need to get
5
that out.
plus 6.
And you can, if this is bonus content, you can use all of this. You can use all. Cheers. I'm Roger.
I'm Nathan, and we're the co-creators of Boundless.
What we wanted to do was give you guys a little behind the scenes at what went into creating this comic. Neither one of us have ever published anything before. School papers, maybe. But
I don't know that they were published, but sure.
Yeah, well, I actually had one published, but that's a story for another time. Okay, so there's an event annually in the comic industry called 24-Hour Comic Day. And the goal is for a single creator to produce a 24-page comic in 24 hours. Not surprising, as a comic shop owner, I've always wanted to create a comic, but I really wanted something more than stick figures in this. So I had kind of thrown it out there to our community that we were going to participate in this, and that I wanted to assemble a team to create a comic book, to tackle this challenge, and fail miserably at it, because we were gonna bring in multiple writers, artists, inkers. We brought a letterer on board. So we failed the challenge miserably, but I think in the end it was a huge success, because I mean we're on the doorstep of actually having our comic published, which is really cool.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think we got something that's actually pretty special. I honestly had no idea why Roger came to me in the first place to write a comic book. I'd never really shown any.
Well, we were both drinking at the time.
Could have been it. Yeah, that could have been it. But I'm really honored that he did. And, just drawing from life experiences that were going on at the time, I think we came up with a pretty fantastic story.
Yeah, it was interesting because, I had an idea for a comic and I knew Nathan had approached me about having an idea for a comic. And so we pitched each other our ideas. And as it happens, we loved each other's ideas more than our own, I think. But Nathan's idea worked really well for a one shot. And it was something that I thought that we could tackle and that we could do a pretty good job with. And so we decided to do that. And what's fascinating is that it was your original pitch, albeit great, it ended up being a very different story that we ended up with, because we would get together for whiskey and pipes to just hang out and talk a little bit. We tried to stay true to the intent of 24-Hour Comics Day. We didn't do much plotting or character development or stuff like this, but we talked about what story that we wanted to tell. Initially, we had, because I don't even think we didn't have a title for the new story. We knew hope, right? We had hope. When we start, one of the things that Nathan and I really focused on in starting this was, how do we make it easier on ourselves? Because neither one of us had done this before. We've both read a ton of comics, but being our first time, we tried to make it our task easier, because we have, like I said, I mean, known artists working on this book with just some crazy abilities, and we kind of wanted to uphold our end of the bargain and give them a story that was worth drawing to. One of the things that Nathan had suggested, and this was a brilliant idea, was to infuse a tempo into the comic ahead of time by the panel layouts. Instead of wasting time, page by page, trying to figure out, how many panels it should be, and going through, we could actually put a tempo into the comic with the panel layout. And this was very early on. This is like the dawn of, the night that we started. I did this grid. It's a 24-page comic, so it's 8, 8, and 8. And Nathan had suggested using kind of an oscillating panel layout. So you have 1 panel, 2 panel, 2 panel, 3, 3, 4, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. So that in the center of the comic, you end up with this great 2-page splash that we knew at the start. There were a couple things that we knew. We knew how we wanted to start. Somehow we had ended up on focusing on this age-old question, at least in geek culture. If you could have one superpower, what would it be? That was kind of the conversation that we chose to start the comic with between our two principal characters. We knew we wanted a confrontation in the center, and then the end. I'm not going to show you, because if you haven't read it, it's a spoiler. So, but we knew these 3 moments in the comic kind of going in. We didn't know how we were going to get from place to place, but you have, by doing the panel layouts, or at least deciding on the panel layouts ahead of time, it actually made our job much easier, and it worked out really cool, because there are places where there's 3 panels where in the center we put the 2 principal characters back to back, because and I'll talk about that in a second. And then later in the book, with the 3 panels, the main panels, they're opposing each other, because there comes a point in the middle where there's this confrontation, and they're kind of at odds with one another. So the panel layout ahead of time actually worked to our benefit. Mm-hmm. I think and saved us a ton of time. We chose with the story, maybe you'll remember, half of the story takes place in the real world, and half the story takes place within the imagination of our protagonist, Hope. And what we chose to do was, for the panels that take place in the real world, we chose to border those, because life has boundaries. And in the imagination panels, we basically used a full bleed on the art, so that there's no borders. It kind of takes up the entirety of the page. And I thought that was something that I thought was really cool. It's one of the things I'm most proud of, as far as how we chose to tell the story. Right. Do you remember how we came up with that?
I don't recall the genesis of a lot of the ideas. I just know that I'm really happy with the way things turned out.
Yeah.